In this video, we're going to be continuing to discuss large, medium, and small detail and how those all relate to each other, our primary, secondary, and tertiary forms. And what I've got for you right now is one of my favorite digital artists by the name of Michael Vicente, and he goes by the name of Orb. He currently works for Blizzard Entertainment as a environment digital sculptor and has done a lot of work on the game Heroes of the Storm. So I want to really highlight this artist's work and tell you why that I think he's probably one of the best examples to look at as far as primary, secondary, and tertiary forms. He does a great job, I think, of making sure that he's got the right balance between those different forms. He does a lot of work to really concentrate on those primary forms, and he's got a lot of really great secondary breakup. Now, for the tertiary forms, the very fine level detail on these things, there's really not much there, but there really doesn't need to be much there. The work that he's working on has you from a far away kind of camera distance, so you never really get up super close to the work anyways. But regardless, I think he does a really great job of breaking down those different forms and making sure they're in perfect balance with each other. So the other reason I want to highlight this artist's work is because of the volume of work that this artist has produced is going to give you tons of different examples of things that you can take a look at. As far as stonework, you can see he's got these different skulls, so he's got organic material, he's got statues, he's got wood, metal, and if we scroll through here, you can see there's modular assets that were used to build out larger spaces for environments. Tons of detail work on here. You can just see we've got some repeating patterns and repeating textures to fill up larger spaces, characters on here. So there's just tons of great examples that this artist has produced. What we're taking a look at right now is a Pureref board that I put together of this artist's work, and a little bit later in the video I will give you a link and show you on Gumroad how you can download that, and you could get this reference board for free. And if you want to use that and use that as kind of reference for yourself while you're sculpting and you're making your creation, I think that would be a great idea. If we could just talk about reference for just a second, from all the different reviews that we've had with industry people coming in and taking a look at our students' work, one of the big things that people in the industry emphasize over and over again is the use of reference and making sure that you have good reference at all times, right? And so I think some of the best artists, you might think that they just don't look at anything, they don't look at reference at all, and they just create straight from their head. Some people are able to do that, but usually they've got a visual library that's kind of built up in their head, and they've looked at tons and tons and tons of imagery. But even some of the best artists out there are going to make sure that they've got really good reference, and they're taking a look at that throughout the process while they're creating, and that helps drive the quality bar higher and make sure that they're kind of on model and on target throughout the entire process, right? So I'm going to give you that, and like I said, I think that's a really good thing for you to be looking at this artist's work while you make your creations. The other thing we're going to look at is that this artist is giving away this this brush pack that he's developed for free, and we'll take a look at that as well. So let's hop on over to ZBrush Central, and I'm going to show you the thread where I've taken most of the images for this. Okay, here we are inside of ZBrush Central's forms, and you can see if you do a search for Orb Heroes of the Storm Art Dump, you should be able to find this post fairly easy. So again, this is where most of the images that I've captured for the Pureref board exist within this thread, and this is also where you can find a link to his brush pack that he's given. But there's tons of great information for you to kind of take a look at and scroll through and see some of the different examples on here. Again, what I thought might be a little bit easier is instead of just having this thread, if you use Pureref, that you can have the Pureref board open while you're doing your different sculpting. So that's where, again, where most of the images came from. But if you want to scroll through and maybe look at some of the comments that people made and some of the feedback that'd probably be a really good thing for you to take a look at as well. So that's going to scroll up all the way to the top here again, and then you can see within here there's a link to the brush set, and we'll start talking about that. You can also check out his website, and you can see his ArtStation from there. If we go to his ArtStation, you can see we've got this here. He also has a link to his ore brush pack. We'll also talk about this bevel technique that he uses. He's also got a video that you can get as far as rendering inside of ZBrush. So there's lots of great information on there for all this different stuff. So from this thread, if you hop on over, and it gives you the link to the brush set. This is stored on Gumroad, so you can download this and you can get it for free again, and he's got some links on here where you can grab that. So let me talk to you guys about ZBrush and this brush set, because I think it would be good for us to be able to have access to this thing super easy. And I'm going to show you a nice little technique that will allow you, after you've downloaded this, for us to take that brush set and put it in a location where we can get access to it through Lightbox. So let's hop over to ZBrush and take a look at that. Okay, here we are inside of ZBrush, and you can see that I've got Lightbox open, and you can see that we have the ore brush set available to us through Lightbox, and it's really easy to see an icon for each one of the brushes that we want to choose, and it should be really easy for us to load up one of the brushes that we want to use in the process. Now I'm going to show you on Windows, it's possible for you to basically make a shortcut, and I'll show you where to put that within the ZBrush folder structure, so then we can get this to give us a shortcut inside of Lightbox to make it really easy to get to all of our brushes. So I just want to give credit where credit's due. I actually saw this technique from Joseph Drust, and he currently works for Pixelogic at the time of the making of this video, and I think it's really helped me out over the years. ZBrush puts out a lot of different new updates, and every time there's a new update, this technique that I've found has helped me keep everything organized as far as my brushes, my alphas, my projects, all that. What I've done is I've gone through and I've chose a location on my hard drive, and I've done it strategically like this, where if you use Google Drive, Dropbox, we're using Microsoft OneDrive right now. It doesn't really matter what that service is, but I want to keep all my tools in a place that is easy to update and it actually exists on the cloud. Because I've had cases, and I've had students have this happen to them as well, where their computer fails, or they need to switch locations, or whatever the reason is that you have to get off that current computer that you have and go to a different workstation or a different job, or any of those scenarios. If you have all your tools put in a location that's on the cloud, it doesn't matter where the company is, where the computer is, you can always get back to those tools. So what I've done over the years is I've made myself a ZBrush folder, and I actually have two different breakdowns. I keep my projects all in a particular folder, so I've got a lot of different ZBrush projects that I've made over the years, and then I've got a ZBrush tools folder that I have for all the different things that I use in there for making my own custom interface, hotkeys, materials, these brushes like what we're going to take a look at. And basically it's pretty easy. After I've got this folder structure kind of set up for things, and we'll just look at brushes, all we have to do is right click on there, and then we can create a shortcut for that. And once the shortcut is made, and you can see I've got the shortcut down here, and I keep them here just to have easy access to this. Once the shortcut is made, whatever version of ZBrush that comes along, and right now it's at 2020.1.1, and you basically go to find the folder structure for ZBrush there, and you can see we've got Z brushes, Z alphas. So we're just looking at brushes right now. So if I double click on this folder and I take that ZBrush shortcut for the brushes and I place it within here, when I go to my Lightbox, I'm going to go click back on brushes and show you this is the default that kind of loads up. You'll see all the different brushes that ZBrush ships with, but then you'll also see this new shortcut folder right here. So you can double click on that, and this will take you to this area. Now, I've got my own brushes that I've made. I've got some brushes that I made a folder called Other, and that's other artists. And you can see that I've got the orb brush set in their own folder, so I can double click on that and load that up and get access to that. So however you want to do this to organize things, that's up to you. One thing about this workflow is you have to load these brushes every time you do a new session. So let's just say we do this orb slash, and I double click it and I load it up, and then I go to start sculpting on the model, right? If I want to get back to the brush, let's say I go back to my standard brush or any of the other brushes, I can tap B and it'll be loaded up here on the top menu, so you can get back to it that way. Now if you want to load more brushes, you're going to have to hit the comma key, and then let's say we want to use this flatten brush in through here. At that point, then I'm going to have to just load that, and then I can start working with that brush at that point. And if you want to load any more, you just tap the comma key and you keep loading. Now the next time you open up the session, you're going to have to keep doing that. So it doesn't, that's the only drawback of this, but it keeps everything really nice and clean. And like I was saying, even for alphas, I've got a shortcut to the alphas that I have and that I've found over the years, and maybe some of them that I've made. So it makes it just really easy to get to the different material that you're looking for. So I wanted to point you to the Gumroad page that I made, where you can download the Pureref board that I created with this artist's work. And this should make it a lot easier for you to throw the reference on a secondary monitor or your primary monitor, whichever one you want to use. So everything's kind of laid out, and I've made basically these boards here. So this is almost like fills up a monitor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 different boards that are laid out pretty good, and you can just kind of push and pull those around in there. So I know it's listed as $1 here, but you can see I made a code that just says orb reference free, and if you just put that code in, you can download this for free. So the next thing I want to highlight with this artist is this bevel tip in ZBrush using alphas technique. And if you go to Orb's ArtStation, you can find this pretty easily. So if I just click on this link, it's going to open this up right within here. And like I was saying, this is actually available in a PDF format that you can download. But basically it's going to show you a technique inside of Photoshop for taking that and then turning shapes into alphas that you're going to be able to use inside of ZBrush and get really clean kind of shapes within there. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is on here is it also has this setup to show you how he renders inside of ZBrush, and I think he also gives you 2 different materials that you could load up inside of ZBrush. So just like what we did with the brush set, you could do that with materials as well and start your own little material library that you could have load up as well. And you can see on Gumroad, here's the Gumroad for actually doing the rendering inside of there. And then the very last thing I want to highlight is that ZBrush puts out a thing called the ZBrush Summit every single year, where they have some of the top artists in all different industries, mainly the movie and games industry, but then they also have things for 3D printing and stuff like that. They have these great talks from these great artists, right? And so this year, if you go back to the official Summit 2016 presentation, Blizzard Entertainment, Michael Vicente actually gave a talk, and if you go to the 1 hour, 7 minute, 22 second mark, right around there, you can actually watch his presentation, and it's a pretty good length of presentation on there. So it's not quite half an hour that he talks, but he talks through a lot of different process and takes a look at some of his different models and things like that, and talks about, especially for Heroes of the Storm, some of the artistic choices that they made for beveling and making sure that shapes kind of show up and stuff like that. So there's a lot of great information, and you can actually hear directly from the artist kind of talking through some of his thought process and things like that. So I thought that was an amazing talk. And also, as we're talking about this whole technique, he actually in this video, he goes through and explains his technique that we're talking about for taking shapes and turning that into to like bevel information that you can use on alphas inside of ZBrush. So again, Really think this artist is one of the best artists out there for doing large, medium, small detail and having that in really good harmony with each other, especially for artists that are just starting off because it's stylized. So we're taking away a lot of the high fidelity noise that you see in realistic sculpts, and so it's a really good way to take a look at large and medium forms. Again, there is some small level detail in there, but not quite the emphasis on there. So before we started on the medium level forms for our sculpt, I just wanted to make sure that you guys had access to this brush set because we might take a look at using those brushes in the future, and I would definitely like for you to have access to that and be using them in your work. They're great. They're great brushes, but beyond that, I really would like for you to take a look at this artist's work and just use it as a really good point of reference for how you could drive your projects forward and have the right combination between primary, secondary, and tertiary forms.